Okay, welcome to session 10. We'll be treating implementing information security. We'll be talking about a lot of ways in which information security is important. We've looked at the need for security, we've looked at cryptography, we've looked at how to be able to implement policies as an organization to be able to keep information security and allow the enterprise to go on. We want to look now at how we are going to implement this information security that we have been talking about in this past few sessions. Okay, so we came across the SEC SDLC implementation phase a few sessions back, where we acknowledge that it follows the usual SDLC. So the SEC SDLC implementation phase is accomplished through changing configuration and operation of organizations' information systems. Now the implementation includes making changes to 1, procedures, which is usually through policy. 2, through people, by way of training. Then we look at hardware, when we look at getting that done through firewalls. Then software through encryption. Then finally, changes made to data through classification. Now, we want to note that organization translates blueprints for information security into a concrete project plan. So we have the blueprint, then there's a translation from the blueprint for information security into a plan itself. So we'll look at information security project management. Now, once the organization's vision and objectives are understood, the process for creating a project plan can be defined. So the major steps that we usually have for the execution is that are these. We plan the project, the supervising tasks and actions and steps are noted, then we'll do the wrapping up. So we'll take a look at developing the project plan. Just like in most well-planned projects, the creation of project plan can be done using work breakdown structure, the WBS, just like in the regular project management. The major project tasks for the work breakdown structure usually are the work to be accomplished as stated on the screen. You make all your assignments, you have all your dates fixed, you can use your Gantt charts for that. Then you have the amount of efforts required, so you do the weighting per task and the assignees. Then you do the estimated capital and non-capital expenses. Then you do the identification of the dependencies between or among the tasks. So this here is just an example of a work breakdown structure from a project. Now, considerations that we need to make when planning the project. Now, as the plan is developed, adding detail is not always straightforward. So we need to have in mind that certain detail additions will not always be straightforward. We also want to consider that have certain special consideration, which include financial, priority, time and schedule, staff, procurement, organizational, and feasibility and training. All of these are things that we might want to have in mind, just like on every other project. That some of these things are not totally fixed. They would vary and they'll be altered when the need be when the project is ongoing. Now, the certain financial considerations, and no matter what information security need exists, the amount of effort that can be expended depends on funds available. No matter the kind of information you need, if there is no money to be able to implement that information security, there's not much you can do about it. So you always have to note that there's a financial obligation in being able to implement information security. So because of that, you need to be able to do the cost-benefit analysis and verify that prior to development of the project plan to make sure that the funds that you need is going to be available to be able to undertake the project. You must also know that you should be able to justify an amount budgeted for a security project at either public or for-profit organizations, and it may be useful to benchmark expenses in similar organizations. Let's take a look at time and scheduling considerations. Time impacts dozens of points in the development of a project plan, including time to order, receive, install, configure security control, the time to train users, and time to realize return on investment of control. So these are considerations with regards to time that during the project planning we want to note. Another thing that we want to consider is staffing. Lack of enough qualified, trained, and available personnel constrains project plan, most definitely. And we also want to consider the fact that experienced staff is often needed to implement available technologies and develop and implement policies and training programs. So this is straightforward. We look at procurement considerations. We will have to have in mind that during the project planning, we'll consider that the IT and information security planners must consider acquisition of goods and services, most definitely. So in the project planning, we'll have to have a lot of considerations. To touch on them, we'll have to have organizational feasibility considerations. We'll have to have training and introduction considerations. And we'll have to consider the scope of the project too. We need to know the boundaries of time and effort hours that are needed to deliver the planned features and quality level of project deliveries. Now, in the case of information security, the project plan should not attempt to implement the entire security system at one time. It's very deadly. You must have in mind that it's going to be a process. Like we said in the first session, that security is not absolute, it's a process. So you need to have in mind when we are going about the project planning that its implementation will not happen in one time of thing. It's going to happen in a process, so it will be rolled out. Now, why the need for project management? Now, the need for project management is because project management requires a unique set of skills and thorough understanding of a broad body of specialized knowledge. Most information security projects require a trained project manager, whom we call the CISO, or skilled IT manager versed in project management techniques. Then we need also the supervised implementation. Some organizations may designate the champion from general management community of interest to supervise implementation of information security project plan. An alternative is to designate a senior IT manager or the CIO, Chief Information Officer, to lead implementation. This is actually subject to the organization. So based on which organization you find yourself, either of these persons could be the one given the championing role. Then the need for project management is because we also need to be able to execute the plan. So to execute the plan, we need to be able to consider the negative feedback. We need to consider that negative feedback ensures project progress is measured periodically. So each time you are measuring the feedback that the project is giving you, it helps you to be able to make sure that whatever you are doing is having a periodic measurement. That is why we need a project management. And often the project manager can adjust one of three parameters for tasks being corrected. He or she can adjust the effort and money allocated. He or she can adjust the schedule impact or the quality or quantity of deliverable. So this is a negative feedback loop. The plan is developed, the work occurs, progress is measured, then you ask yourself, have you completed it? If yes, the project is complete. If no, are we on target? If yes, we continue the work and move on in that chain. Are we on target? No. If no, we'll have the corrective action, we'll go back and continue work, and so on and so forth. So this is why we need project management in the planning of the project of an information security program. We need these management techniques to be applied or implemented to help us keep track and be able to roll out a very good solution. Then we'll need a wrap-up. The project wrap-up is usually handled as procedural task and assigned to mid-level IT or information security manager. Let's take a look now at technical aspects of implementation. We look at the managerial parts when we are going about it as a project. Now we'll take a look at it as in terms of the technicalities. So we'll look at the technical aspects of implementation. Now some parts of implementation process are technical in nature, dealing with application of technology. Others are not, dealing instead with human interface to technical systems. So we have the conversion strategies. There are 4 basic approaches. We have the direct changeover, we have the phased implementation, we have the pilot implementation, then we have the parallel operations. We have different models that are used. We have one known as the bull's-eye model. This method is a proven method for prioritizing program of complex change. Its issues addressed from general to specific. Its focus is on systematic solutions and not individual problems. Then it relies on the process of evaluating project plan in progression through 4 layers. It does that through policies, through networks, through systems, and through applications. So this is a structure, a figure of how the bull's-eye model looks like. Now we'll look at to outsource or not. Just as some organizations outsource IT operations, organizations can outsource part or all of information security programs. Now, due to complex nature of outsourcing, it's advisable to hire best outsourcing specialists and retain best attorneys possible to negotiate and verify legal and technical intricacies. Let's take a look now at technology governance and change control. Technology governance is a complex process that an organization uses to manage impact and costs from technology implementation, innovation, and obsolescence. Now, by managing the process of change, the organization can improve communication, enhance coordination, and so on and so forth. So the technology governance and change control is very important. We'll take a look now at the non-technical aspects of implementation. Now, other parts of implementation process are not technical in nature, like the topic suggests. Now, this deals with the human interface to technical systems, like we have said. It includes creating a culture of change management as well as considerations for organizations facing change. Now, the culture of change management is an issue in most organizations. The prospect of change can cause employees to build up resistance to change. Now, the stress of change can increase the probability of mistakes or create vulnerabilities. Resistance to change can be lowered by building resilience for change. Now, there's a model which looks at it in 3 folds. It looks at unfreezing, moving, and refreezing. Just to touch on what the model for change is. That's Lewin's change model. We want to look at the considerations for organizational change, since change seems to be a big issue for most organizations. Steps can be taken to make organizations more amenable to change. What are they? By first of all, reducing resistance to change from beginning of planning process. So right from the onset of the planning process, we find a way to reduce the resistance to the change that will come after the project has been completed. And also, we can do this by developing a culture that supports change, so that the organization needs to build a culture that welcomes change, so that on the occurrence of change, there isn't any resistance that is given to it. We can do that also by reducing resistance to change from the start, like I've stated. And these are points just to add on to how to go about that. And this talks about developing a culture that supports change. We'll look now at information system security certification and accreditation. It may seem that only systems handling secret government data require security certification and accreditation. This is not so. In order to comply with the myriad of new federal regulation protecting personal privacy, organizations need to have some formal mechanism for verification and validation. This is a very important thing. So every organization needs to be able to acquire, in accordance to the new federal regulations, personal privacy in the form of a formal mechanism for verification and validation. Now we'll look at certification versus accreditation. Accreditation is when we talk about accreditation, when authorized IT systems, we authorize IT systems to process, to store, or to transmit information. And this assures systems of adequate quality. When we do this, then it means we've accredited them. When we say we have certified them, or we talk about certification, we're looking at the evaluation of technical and non-technical security controls of IT system, establishing extent to which design and implementations meet security requirements. So this is an example of such a guidelines for security, known as the SP 800-37. There's also the NSTISS, which is also Information Security System Security Certification and Accreditation. It does that in 4 phases. We also have the ISO 27001/27002 System Certification and Accreditation. So those are just a few examples of the accreditation that we have. In summary, we have looked at moving from the security blueprint itself, which leads us to translating the blueprint into the project plan itself. We've looked at organizational consideration that addresses what is addressed by the project plan. We've seen that project managers' role in success of an information security project is very, very fundamental. We've also seen that technical strategies and models for implementing project plan exist. We have also realized that as much as there are technical strategies, we have non-technical strategies. And with this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you very much.